Okay, so what we're going to do is have just a little look at the periodic table and maybe just annotate our periodic tables with a few little key things that we will need to know. So the first one we're going to have a look at is where the metals are separated from the non-metals on our periodic table. What we need to do is take a pen and we're going to draw a zigzag line above aluminium and below boron, and across and down, and across and down, and across and down. And everything to the left of this zigzag line and underneath is a metal, and up on this right hand side we've got our non-metals. So this line is going to separate the metals on the left hand side from the non-metals to the top right corner. The next thing we're going to mark onto our periodic table is the element's state at room temperature. So is it a solid, a liquid or a gas at room temperature? You'll be expected to know which elements are solids, which elements are liquids and which elements are gas. And looking at the 100 and so elements, that might seem a little bit daunting, but it's not as hard as it seems. So what we're going to do first is pick out the gases. So we've got hydrogen is a gas, so I'm just going to do a little G symbol for gas in there. What other things are gases? Well, nitrogen is a gas, oxygen is a gas, fluorine is a gas. That's perhaps one that you've not come across as often. Nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine and chlorine are gases. There's a little corner there of gases. So hydrogen is a gas, nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine and chlorine. And then there are some that you will have heard of, the noble gases. So we're going to, the noble gases, group 8 or group 0, are gases. So there are gases, and that's all of the gases in the periodic table. Liquids even easier. There are only 2 liquid elements at room temperature, and they are bromine and mercury. Every single other element is a solid at room temperature. So I'm not going to mark them all on as solids, but every single other element is a solid at room temperature. So that's how you know which ones were solids, which ones were liquids, and which ones were gases. The next thing you might want to do is make yourself a little key. There are a few elements that exist as diatomic elements, so elements that go around not as just the symbol on the periodic table, but they go around in pairs. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a little key, and I'm going to say that the ones I highlight in yellow are going to be my diatomic elements. Okay, so my diatomic elements. And the diatomic elements are hydrogen, H2, nitrogen, N2, oxygen, O2, fluorine, F2, chlorine, Cl2, bromine, Br2, iodine, I2. And you might have heard a little rhyme. There's a little rhyme that says, have no fear of ice cold beer. Have no fear of ice cold beer. So they're the elements that are diatomic elements. There are just 2 other elements at A-level chemistry that we need to know don't go around as the symbol on the periodic table, and that's phosphorus, and phosphorus goes around as P4, and then the last one, sulfur. Sulfur goes around one of the allotropes as S8 rings. So these are just some of the elements that, if we were writing them down in our chemistry, we wouldn't write down just the symbol on the periodic table. So we've got the diatomic, they're the most important to remember. And the last thing that we could mark on our periodic table is the charges of the ions when they form ionic compounds. If you're in group 1, you form 1+ ions. If you're in group 2, you form 2+ ions, Mg2+. If you're in group 3, and you not including boron, because that's not going to form the ionic compounds, but the metals will form 3+ ions. And then we've got the 1- ions in group 7, the 2- ions like oxide, O2-, sulfide, S2-, and in group 5 we've got the 3- ions like nitride, phosphide, P3-, N3-. So But that's just a couple of annotations for our periodic tables to make them a bit more useful as we go through the course.